Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Dolly, for the inspiration. It has been really, really nice. Arlindo, I have to say thank you for being here and also thank you all. So, because I have a very different background of you lots, I felt the need to explain who I am and what I do. So I'm a deep sea benthic ecologist. I pose questions like, how does the ecosystem works? How does it play a role? Is there an effect of climate change in the deep sea? And what the impact of mining is in the deep sea? So I worked in different locations, and is actually, I jump from country to country. I think I'm a gypsy. And so I've been in the Netherlands, Portugal, UK, Japan, Norway, Italy, and so on. These are just the main institutions. So the deep sea. What is the deep sea? So the deep sea is everything that is beyond 200 and 250 meters. And 80% of our oceans have more than 2,000 meters. So it means that is the largest ecosystem on Earth, but it's also the least explored and understood. And characteristics like stable environments, low densities of fauna, food, oxygen, and temperature. But because it's so expensive and it's so remote, only 5% of the deep sea has been explored with remote instruments, and less than 0.01% has been sampled and studied in detail. So for you, maybe the deep sea, for me, is an amazing place, but I think for most of you, you must associate the deep sea with a boring place without life, something like this. But I can assure you that is not. You have a lot of an amazing places in the deep sea that are hotspots of biodiversity. And this is just an example of different deep sea ecosystems that you can find in the Northeast Atlantic. So you have continental margins, abyssal plains, submarine canyons that are actually my favorites, seamounts, and vents and cold seeps. But to study the deep sea, you need vessels. And these are just some of the vessels I have been. Dutch, English, Norwegians, Japanese, Greeks, and Germans. And because it's so expensive, you cannot just go to the deep sea for a day. So you have to go on these vessels that are actually over than 65 meters and spend days, weeks, months. So actually, if I sum up all the days that I have been on a vessel, because I have done over 60 oceanographic cruises, I think I've spent 2 or 3 years in a row. But to study the deep sea, of course, because you spend, I forgot this slide, you spend so many days and months in the ocean, you can have really tough and rough seas, which actually, I really love those. To look in the microscope whenever you have really, really high waves, but you also have calm seas. But you may wonder, how can you study the deep sea? How are the tools and the techniques? So for a deep sea researcher, you have ROVs, you have landers, you have AUVs, you have CTDs, you have a bunch of different tools and techniques. And these are just a few that I've used through all my deep sea career. The ones that I tend to use more are ROVs and landers. And landers, I quite like them. Can you point it? But anyway, it's this one. Because it can stay in the deep sea over a year, and then it can collect all kinds of data. So for us, it's actually really nice. But my favorite instrument is actually the submersible. So when I was in the Western North Pacific with the Japanese, we went on a cruise from Japan all the way to New Zealand. New Zealand all the way to Japan. And as soon as I enter Yokosuka, the vessel, I saw the submersible. And I said to my colleague, I want to go inside. And then he said, you can't. I was like, what? Why? The experiment is ours. Why can I just not go inside? And then he said, it was not planned. And then I said, yeah, but we are going to spend 7 weeks together at sea. We can plan the dive, but it was not possible. So when I went back on land, because we deployed some experiments in next to the equator and next to Japan. And those experiments have to be incubating for 50 days. So when I went back to Greece, because at the time I was in Greece, I had 50 days to convince and to plan my Japanese colleague to actually enter the submersible. So I sent them a lot of emails. He said it was not possible, but at the end he said, okay, you can go, but you have to learn Japanese. At that time, I was learning Greek. So I thought that my brain could not cope between Greek and Japanese. So I quit immediately with the Greek. I went, just straightforward with the Japanese. I said to my colleague, no problem, I will manage. So I went back to Japan. I could talk a bit and I could understand. Of course, I could not write and I could not read, but I could talk. So once we were on a vessel, he said to me, I'm so sorry, but my Japanese colleague is going. And then I never give up of anything. I am from Porto and my football team never gives up of anything. And I said to him very politely, no, it's my experiment. And, very scientifically, I told him that I really needed to go because Norio didn't know what to do. And I was not going to teach him. So I went. This is my diving plan. Japanese. My name, I was working for the Hellenic Center of Marine Research. Sorry, I don't know what happened. Okay. The diving plan was to go to 5,256 meters. So I think anyway, I can go on with the story. So there was a lot of preparations for me to go inside of the submersible. They gave me a kind of an astronaut suit. They asked me if I wanted to wear a diaper. Of course, I didn't want to wear a diaper because I had this really nice astronaut suit. Of course, I regret it at the end because I spent 8 hours in the submersible. But I went. So in the submersible is really, really small. The place is really tidy. And it was myself, the pilot, and the co-pilot. And the co-pilot only had one mission, to maintain the PPO2 and the PPCO2 constant. And while the pilot had to do all the rest. So on my way down, it was like an amazing experience because I saw all the zooplankton coming to the submersible and it felt like I was in space. And the zooplankton that was emitting light was like shooting stars. So for 2.5 hours, I was like overexcited, as you can imagine. I only had time to take a picture at 5,000 meters because whenever we landed, I had to work quite a lot. And on my way up, we did our mission, our job. In our way up, actually, I forgot, the Japanese put movies or songs, music whenever we descend. And on the way down, they put Japanese music. We had a stop at 3,000 meters and they collect water and they just start singing Beatles, The Yellow Submarine. I don't know. I think it was a joke. And then on the way up, it was my turn. So I love British pop rock. So I put the Japanese for 2.5 hours listening to some nice songs. Anyway, so what did I do? See, this is just some chambers. And I was looking at if climate change really exists in the deep sea and how it can affect the whole ecosystem. And by the way, I published 3 papers on this. So, and the answer is yes, actually. If the climate change really goes to the deep sea, it has a huge effect. So this is just some organisms that I found, and this is just, whoops, the team that once in Japan, I need to be Japanese, so I need to say yes to them. Anyway, shallow water. So I'm also a diver. And I started diving when 1997 in Porto with Manel and Armando. And of course, like a normal person that is in a school, I also went to a lot of diving trips. And I went to Cape Verde with them. I went to São Vicente and Sant Antão. And I kept on going without them because I thought Sant Antão was amazing, really unique, not only the landscape, but underwater as well. I have a video. I'm sorry for the quality, but I'm not a photographer. This was me just trying out some nice shooting. So when I was there, because I got the chance to manage a diving center there when I was unemployed for 3 months, I started thinking, I think this place is unique. We need to do something. We need to study the deep sea. So the deep sea, yes, and also the shallow water, because although you have lots of researchers there, they don't really publish a lot. So I start gathering lots of ideas in my head. I start inviting lots of people with different approaches, and we submitted a project that just started in April in Sant Antão, and with a bunch of people from Aveiro, where I work now, a bunch of biologists and CIMAR, but also I'm looking at bathymetry, side scan sonar. I'm looking at also how the ecosystem is and if it needs recovery. I have my ROV that I will tell you. It's a French guy, Fred, that goes to over 250 meters. So if I need him, he can go. And I'm involving also the locals, ONGs, but also a diving center there and the universities. So instead of having this vessel, because I think I got very spoiled, now I'm having these. And instead of having this ROV, now I'm going to use these. So it's quite a challenge for me because I'm going to really apply different techniques in coastal environments. But for that, I'm going to use the Green Turtle Diving Center, and with Ricardo is the owner. So for diving, I told you that by the time of this project, I was a technical diver. I always fall in love to go deep, but I never imagined myself with a bunch of tanks. I think I'm short, and I think I would disappear with all those tanks with me. So I met Fred from Marseille. He's a cave diver when I was in Croatia. And in his backyard, he has like all the rebreathers that you can imagine. But he's not an instructor. And so he introduced me to Aldo Ferrucci. I had a chat with him in France, sorry. I went to Cavalaire-sur-Mer during the lockdown. I managed to escape from Portugal. And I did my rebreather course. But before I did my rebreather course, and because I'm a scientist, I had Aldo giving me a lesson from all the rebreathers he had. And then I chose the best that I thought at the time, and I still think best for myself. Rocco did at the same time a rebreather course, but using a different set. So actually it was very nice to be there with them. And this is just my final dive with them. Do I still have time? Yeah. So after the diving, and I've talked with a lot of people here because of the fishermen there, I'm including in the project fishermen in Santo. These guys, they are all spread all around Santo. They are fishermen. They dive without having a diving course. I actually managed to give to Jason, so the third one, underwater, open water diving course. But at the end, it was like amazing, perfect. But then I saw him in the water, and then he had no BCD, and he was diving like, yes, he was in the past. So going through that, yeah, in that way, it doesn't work. So then I want to include them in my research. Not only I'm gonna rent their boats, because I want all the money that is belongs to the project to be spent in Cape Verde, to be spent in Santo Antão, and I want them all diving with me. So I'm gonna put these guys with computers. They're gonna watch us diving as safe as possible, and I will try to teach them in an indirect way that they should actually change their way of diving. Because, for instance, Nono is one of them that goes to 20 meters every day, 4 times a day, with a surface interval of 10 to 15 minutes every day. Jaza, he goes to 45 meters for 45 minutes every day to catch lobsters. He has a tank of 18 liters. And yeah, he always tells me, like I said yesterday, nothing has ever happened to me. I am very fit. I don't care. I gave him my actually old computer, but I think it's not going to work, this approach. So he has to be diving with me, and let's see if I can change their minds. And the other guys, they are like, the examples are actually the same. And they dive like I've seen Jacques Cousteau diving in the first of his dives. So without actually a jacket, they just wear something to hold the tank, and that's it. So I'm imagining Jaza to go to 45 meters, actually in a very nice area to catch lobsters with the 18 tank, but only something to hold their, his tank. So I don't know, it goes against everything I learned about decompression. So yeah, let's see if I can help them by including them as much as possible in the project. So thank you so much for your attention. Yeah?